Hello, in today's video we're only going to be talking about one thing. You've read the title, you've seen the thumbnail. There's only one show in town this week, and that is James Gunn's Superman. So let's get right into it, because this film, there's been a lot of discussion leading up to it, and then a little bit after. Some reviews that came out which said it was too silly, maybe, too much fun to be fun. And after seeing the film and then still seeing stuff like that come out, I think that's just crazy. Like, I don't get that at all. I saw this film and I thought it was pitch perfect. I thought this was brilliant. I thought this was everything a Superman movie should be. And that is a story about a person who is trying to do better and trying to help others, and by struggling to do so, inspires those people around him to do the same. Just a really sincere, earnest attempt to tell that story. I'm obviously not the first person to say this, but the way films have been going, particularly Marvel films, this cynicism and kind of tongue-in-cheek nature has kind of crept in, and I think that comes from a lack of confidence in the material, that if you try and be sincere and it falls flat, you know, it's embarrassing. But if you do something sincere and then hang a lantern on it, make a joke, that kind of did I just say that kind of humor, then, you know, you kind of undercut your own moment, but you're also giving yourself an out to kind of say, oh, we were going to do something serious, but we know how silly that is. And I think people are kind of getting fed up with that, to be honest. And that's a theme in the movie, is something that Superman says is, does he have a real punk rock attitude, because he dares to be hopeful and he dares to trust people and he dares to be sincere, because Lois Lane, you know, says she's more punk rock because she's the cynic and she doesn't trust anyone. But it's easier to live like that because you don't open yourself up to be disappointed and hurt, whereas Superman kind of puts himself on the line. And I think that theme runs out the whole film and informs the character. And, you know, in a kind of a bit of meta commentary, you know, on the state of cinema, I think it's kind of talking about the movie itself. This movie is going to dare to be sincere, and for the most part, I think people have really appreciated that and kind of latched onto that, because there's been one or two of those reviews that said it was too silly, and I just don't get that at all. I don't know what they were expecting from a Superman movie, unless they were comparing it to Zack Snyder's Superman or the earlier Chris Reeve one. But Zack Snyder's one, which was very dark and dour anyway, but even the Chris Reeve one, which was, you know, much more upbeat and positive, still felt like it was in a bit of a bubble. It felt like the world as we knew it was the same, and it just had Superman in it, whereas this world felt like a fully realized version of what a world would be with superheroes like Superman and Green Lantern in it. And in a way, I think that made it felt more real. I think some of the highlights of it was the cast and characters. So, what was it? David Corn Sweat as Superman. I think he played it perfectly, because I think when you play Superman, I think it's easy to lose some of the nuance in the shadow of the scale of the character. But I think he did a really good job of playing a person who is so motivated by this drive to do good that sometimes they can come across as slightly naive, and that, you know, comes across the most in his interview with Lois Lane, where she's questioning his motivations, or questioning what his motivations might appear to outside observers. And you get the sense that he hasn't really thought through some of his actions. He's just kind of acted on instinct, guided by his moral compass. And that's good, or I suppose that's what's good about him, is he doesn't have any ulterior motives, but he does come across as slightly naive for not even considering that. But that's what the character is, and I think that's why it works, is he is the Boy Scout. He's just there to do good, so he can't, or he finds it very hard to comprehend why someone would find fault with his behavior. I think he also had this kind of dorky farm boy kind of charm to him. he is a bit of a dork, but when it comes down to it, he tries to do the right thing. And that kind of embodies the idea of the superhero, and that's what inspires those around him. Like, there's that scene where he says, "Oh, I'm gonna turn. There's a warrant for my arrest. I'm gonna turn myself in." And Lois, the cynic, is kind of like, "Oh, like I don't. Why would you do that?" And he says, "Well, if they arrest me, they might take me to where Crypto is, because Crypto was kidnapped earlier, and if there's a chance I can find him, I want to take that because Crypto's probably alone and probably scared." And just the idea of that, he doesn't even think of the kind of consequences, which is what's works so well, I think, is because this version of Superman, he's not as powerful, I think, as ones we've seen before. He can be physically hurt, but also in terms of mentality, that naivety where he agrees to be arrested, and a superhero like a Batman or an Iron Man would probably guess that that's going to be a trap. Whether he realizes it or not, he doesn't really care, because his drive to do good motivates him so much that he kind of doesn't care about the consequences to himself. He just wants to help the other person and the other animal or the other being in the situation. And that works as well, because that's what Lex Luthor's greatest strength is his brains. He's able to outthink Superman, and that brings us on to Nicholas Hoult. After seeing this and then Nosferatu not too long ago, I've started looking back through a few other Nicholas Hoult films, and I think he is one of those underrated actors going at the moment. He is so good in this at playing a little bit kind of cartoonishly evil at times. There's points where he's just pushing mugs off of desks just to make people clean them up, kind of out of frustration. But at the same time, I think you really do get this sense of someone who is so blinded by jealousy and rage and hatred of Superman that he's willing to do anything, and he's really able to think his way around situations and maneuver Superman into positions to kind of get the upper hand. And at the end, when he's bested by Superman, you really get that sense of someone who's been kind of broken completely, that he was beaten at his own game. Rachel Brosnahan as well as Lois Lane was brilliant. I thought the character of Lois Lane had so much to do in this and really complemented Superman well. As I said, there's that kind of push and pull between one's the cynic and one's the kind of optimist, and how each one kind of imparts a bit of wisdom on the other. But I really liked how much of the plot was kind of driven by her and her kind of figuring out Lex's secrets and taking the ship and then putting the story out and then going to rescue Superman with Mr. Terrific. So as a character, I think they really kind of upgraded Lois from, the damsel in distress of, kind of previous films. Even like the Snyder films, like I haven't seen them in a while, but I can't overly remember what Lois did in those. But this, I was really surprised and really happy with her character, which is, supposed to be this ace reporter, how smart she was and how competent and capable she was, and how she worked well with Jimmy Olsen. I thought he was great. Like, there was no bad character in this, I don't think. I loved Perry White. I loved as the big Universal Rift was coming, and they're trying to get the store, and he's just sitting there smoking the cigar, and he's not paying attention because he's so locked into the story. Just every characterization, every actor was, running on full steam. It was just perfect. Ma and Pa Kent as well, they just seemed like real parents, and I love that aspect of the story where Superman learns, the importance of the people who raised him as opposed to the people who, are his biological parents, and all he knows of them is that message. That's another thing. Like, so I'm not a huge Superman fan. Like, I've never read a Superman comic or anything, but Jor-El and the mother sent Clark to Earth to conquer it and enslave the people. Like, it was kind of bizarre, but I kind of liked it. And it's funny, like in the film, because immediately I was like, oh, that's fake, like Lex Luthor faked that. But they get like a scene of like each main character saying it's not fake. So they're like, no, this is real. Like, there is no doubt this is actually what they said. And Yeah, it was really bizarre, really crazy. But I kind of like that because then when Clark has this, moment of doubt that he thinks he's not the person he is, and Pa Kent, who's just this simple farmer, is trying to articulate this kind of depth of emotion that he feels for his son, and he kind of says, look, it's not who these people say you are. It's what you do. It's your choices, and because we've seen at every step of this film, Superman making choices to help other people, that message really lands home. And I think that's a really, really nice moment. Some criticisms that people had that I can, kind of get on board with is they said it did do the thing where a superhero movie ends with two of the same things, like color swapped, fighting each other, and the clone, spoilers, the clone of Clark Kent. It's funny, I was watching it and I don't know, I was just so swept up in the suspension of disbelief that I think if I had a thought about it, I would have guessed that it was a clone of Clark Kent, or a clone of Superman who was under the mask, because we have this person with equal powers to Superman who's in a mask for the whole film, who can open a DNA locked door to the Fortress of Solitude. So it's yeah, like in hindsight, I should have guessed, but I think in the moment, I was just so swept up in the film, I kind of went, I'll find out later. I don't care. I'm just paying attention. So, I wasn't necessarily surprised, but I just didn't think about it until the end, and then I was like, oh, okay, yeah, it's the same thing. But I think it was different enough. I think because it wasn't someone with the mind of Superman, it was a proxy for Lex Luthor's mind. It was the physical manifestation of Lex Luthor's brains against Superman's brawns. I think that fight kind of worked, and that you could hear Lex calling out the commands, and then when Superman, who's trying to be a bit smarter, and he figures out that it's Lex giving the orders, so he takes out the cameras and then is able to it's just essentially like a meat sack that he can just pulverize and then throw into a black hole. So yeah, I like it's like slightly riding that line, but again, I think it's fine. I think it's just different enough. Yeah, it's hard to talk about this film and not just list off everything that happened in the film and say why I liked it or why I thought it was good. But yeah, to sum it up overall, characters, performances, amazing. The themes of the film, how they paired with the principal character, and how that kind of folded out into what this film means as a kind of a statement piece in cinema today. I just thought everything was perfect. And then, underneath it all, it was very entertaining. And I don't know, like, I feel like I try to give very objective reviews or objective critiques when I talk about films. So I don't like to focus too much on personal things like, when I was watching this movie, it made me feel something, because that's so subjective and that varies from person to person. But all I'll say is, when I was watching this film, it made me feel. It made me feel emotional at times. It made me feel hopeful, and that's something I really enjoyed about it. So yeah.